Awesome. So I'll go ahead and do the intro and then we'll fucking go. Sounds good.
Sounds great.
All right, awesome. All right, guys. So we are back with another episode of Let's Talk Snowboarding. And this one is awesome because we got Caleb Hamilton, aka Destoy Life on Instagram. That's DESTOY Life on Instagram. If you haven't checked out Caleb, go ahead and check him out. Master woodworker, master cat shaper, shaped all kinds of parks all over the place. And we are really stoked to have him. Caleb, how's it going, man?
Really good, Dylan. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. And dude, we are just so stoked to have you. And so, not too long ago, you, Matt, moved back out, back to the East Coast. And let's kind of talk about that. What have you been doing and what's going on in Maine right now?
For sure. I have moved back to Maine, be closer to family and kind of rediscovering my path and direction since leaving snow shaping, trying to figure out where I fit into the world outside of shaping snow on a daily basis. So my wife and I, we've been traveling around a little bit and trying out some different places. We lived in Texas and Florida and didn't really work out there, but figure we give Maine a try. We love it here. Family's here, beautiful. So, so trying to launch more into other shapes and metal and art, wood and clay, and really any medium that strikes my fancy on the day, I suppose. And so just trying to lay the new path.
Dude, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and we're kind of talking about how we kind of met at Hood, but let's take it all the way back, man. So let's go back to when you were a kid. And when was the first time that you put on a snowboard?
The first time I put on a snowboard was it was actually with a school trip to a local ski resort called Shawnee Peak, and they had like $10 ride the bus up to the mountain for night skiing trips. And I had gotten a Burton Air from this place called Play It Again Sports, and it had the tail was shaved off and there was rivets sticking out of the bottom. With the style at the moment was no high backs, so we took the high backs off of it, and I had some LL Bean boots, and we let it rip. It was a great time. Probably should have got a lesson, but as tradition, just a ride to the top on the lift with my brothers and see you at the bottom if you get there. It was amazing.
Yeah, dude. You talk about Play It Again. Where was this again? Where were you? Where was your first?
This was in Maine. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah. I grew up in Maine.
That's all.
Back here. Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up in Maine. But that's funny because Play It Again Sports was my jam growing up too. I grew up in Southwest Oregon. Yeah, and so like on the West Coast, they were there too and stuff. So you could always find some sick deals at Play It Again, dude, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I paid $25 for it or something. Like
yep.
It was. I mean, that's all we could afford. It was perfect, and the $10 ski trip, already supported by the school, just made it easy. And then from there, my dad ended up actually working at Thunder River in Maine, and we ended up getting passes through that, and he got into snowcats, and that's how I got into snowcats. I have this school project I did. I think it was from 5th or 6th grade. It's all about how I can't wait to drive snowcats, and I love it. And I used to go ride with them when I was a kid, and I was just taken by it immediately.
Yeah. Was he a groomer at a resort, or how was he involved in snowcats?
He eventually was the grooming supervisor for Sunday River,
Okay.
and that's kind of how I got into terrain parks. I remember he came home one day and was like, "Oh, he was watching all of our friends. We had a huge pack of local kids, and there was a big draw for it. And he's like, "Oh, we really should start a terrain park department. And we're gonna need people to do it." And I just remember this. It was like a flash, like a vision of just ideas and shapes and things that I could do with it. And I was 15. It just instantly hit me like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so anyway, I ended up working towards it, and the beginnings of it were uh, them making snowmaking piles, and then us shaping it into, they wouldn't even give us cat time, not cats to drive personally, especially. So it was all about hand shaping the piles, and they dragged a school bus out there and put it in there that we built snow over, and it was like a cliff drop school bus, and it was just the very, very beginning of anything. It was really fun and exciting, a lot of work and shoveling, but so gratifying when you and your friends got to ride it after you hand shaped it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I honestly, before, I headed out to come down and record with you, I was kind of checking out a little bit of stuff this morning, and the Brain Bowl sessions like entire recap had come up with Max Worthington, and gosh, man, that event is so cool. Have you ever been up there for that
No,
event?
I haven't. No, it looks something that I would enjoy for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of us homies from back in the day that are fascinated with shapes and plow and like shift like shaping and hand cutting everything and super cool stuff. Like that was really cool to see, like all the shapes that they did were just so awesome, and it reminded me a lot of like you know my my first like experience as far as like knowing who you were was just randomly in the morning, before I used to go up to work up at Timberline at Hood. It was, I would turn on my Instagram, 4:35 in the morning, and the store life was up and it was a live feed, and I was like, oh, what's he doing? And you were just out in the cat shaping, and then you would always run the cat track back, and it was always just so sick, dude. It was like you had these sunrises, like you could capture a sunrise from the cat, just like, and that got me fucking stoked to go up to Hood and go work at Timberline for the day and be like, okay, it's gonna be a good day. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what I
Yeah, I feel like,
appreciate about you guys so much, dude. Like cat drivers, dude, so sick.
yeah, thank you. I think I feel like as a terrain park builder, you have somewhat of a responsibility to kind of be the bridge between the community and the resort. You're kind of that link of, that's how you draw people in. That's how you make the connection. That's how the difference between a park that's progressive and a park that's just a park that shapes, that jumps and rails that everybody has, but are your riders within that park progressing? It's like building that link between the two, um, to make it so it's the best product it can be for the rider, but also uh, for the resort and the money they're spending. And I think to be proactive and sharing what you're doing and showing uh, the progress and the hard work, I think that really connects people uh, to the program, and building a community around your program is important, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure, man. I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate a nice park. I mean, when I got my first start into like actually being in snowboarding and getting into the park, I was I don't think about it back when I was there, but in retrospect, like now I'm like, oh, I was spoiled, dude. Like I'm at Hood, I'm at Timberline, I'm at Meadows, like all these terrain parks are sick. You got and even you got the rope tow down at Ski Bowl, which is just a whole nother vibe in itself. And then, fast forward 7 years ago is when I moved up here to North Idaho. And, no disrespect for the shift, the shapers up here and the park crew up here, but it's just not on the same level because it's just not. I think the priorities and the funding is a little bit different for places like up here as opposed to your typical mecca places like Hood,
Yeah.
the Sierras, Mammoth,
I
and stuff
think,
like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think the reality of the situation is that it's less about funding, okay? Because look at it in this way, like what park programs in the country right now are like the most progressive? I'm not talking about like shapes. Okay, Mammoth has amazing jumps. They have huge budgets, all those things, right? But who does everyone pay attention to? And for creativity and real progression of the sport. I mean, that's Troll, Sugar Bush, like those programs are built around a community. It's not just some park builders building park what they think is cool. Those builders are involved with the community. They're talking to them. They're seeing how their riders are progressing. They're building to be ahead of the progression of what their riders are going to be. And you can never have that without the community behind it. And without the link between the two, I mean, it's just, you can have the same budget. I bet that any of those mountains in Idaho have the same or a bigger budget than Troll and Hawk in Wisconsin, and their shapes are amazing all the time and progressive and cool. So, and that just goes to show that the builders are working with the riders, and they're also working with the management to get the funding that they need. You can't talk to management just in sense of this shape is cool, man. You got to really
yeah,
explain to them, why the shape is cool and why it's connecting to the community and what's progressing, um, and what they're getting for their money. That's what they want to know. They're not going to keep funding your program and letting it grow if you don't have real numbers to show. Trust the math.
yeah, of course, man. And gosh, you're so right because it's interesting up here. We have at Schweitzer, we have a pretty renowned shaper and park builder. His name's Dan, and he's kind of a local legend, but his focus is like big jumps, like big massive wedges, and not so much a flow, but over the last 3 years or so, feedback from a lot of the snowboarders, especially, in the instructor realm, like we all kind of agreed, like, hey, we need to utilize our space better. This park should be like, what would you think about like an all natural feature flow park? And we just did like hips and jumps and like, you know, octagon shapes and cones and all this kinds of stuff. And guess what? This season, the South Park has become the new flow park. It's like there was a six spine, there was all this kinds of cool stuff. And
Right.
so I think that they will hear that and they will do their best to do it. And it's just it's cool to see. It's like let's just be more creative with it because if you can consume what snowboarding has started to become, like there's just so many different things that you can consume. Like I remember the super park days where everything was just massive and stuff.
Yeah.
And now everything is still
Yeah. I
big,
mean,
but there's
I
also a
think that
lane
was
for the smaller features.
I think that was like those super park days where like there's a limit to the physical being of how big you can go. I think we've reached those, you know, close outside of maybe the backcountry, but in a park setting, and that's kind of what I was trying to do towards the end of my tenure at Timberline was, I was looking at what was happening. We had these we had our one main giant park for the pro park, and it maybe had 10% of our ridership, but 60% of our budget in diesel, you know? And so how can we equal that out and make it so our ridership is represented in the value that we're building? And that's where we did the same thing, is transitioned it to a flow park, and that same diesel that we spent had 90% ridership. The families were loving the transitions and riding the flow and finding their own lines, but the pros were also making huge transfers and gaps and finding their own, and they loved it equally. I didn't hear a single complaint that we didn't have a 90-foot booter anymore. I mean, it's Timberline. They always had a significant booter somewhere, but we didn't need, a 6-pack of giant jumps, and those are the type of things that management want to hear to have for them to invest. They don't want to say, like, let's spend a bunch of money on jumps that 4 people ride,
Yeah.
And I feel like at this point, the ski resort parking lots are full every day. It's really getting harder and harder to convince ski resorts to spend the money on the programs like they used to, because why? It's an extra thing. It's terrain parks are awesome and it's great to have. You got to have something. But if your parking lot's already full, regardless of the quality of your terrain park, do you need to spend a ton of money on it? I don't know. So I feel like the next generation of park builders and they have a challenge ahead of them to really reassign the value to what terrain parks are, and just by going, it's cool, probably isn't going to be the ticket. We got to really think about the value and the customer usership of the parks.
Yeah. It's so true. And you mentioned the flow park, and the flow park is a very special thing for a lot of people up at Timberline, I feel like, because it's a bridge between that, anyone can kind of do it. Anyone can go small with it, anyone can go big with it. And it's literally been my favorite thing that I've ever, experienced as far as like terrain parks go, is the flow park at Timberline. When it gets released during the springtime is what I've always looked forward to. And I've remembered great years, and I remember there was a half pipe right in the middle of it one year, a mini pipe, and then there was an octagon down at the bottom, and you could hit the octagon any way you wanted to go, and it's all off Storm and Norman, and yeah, it's just like it. And I've never been able to ask you, because I knew that at that time when the flow park was kind of like formulated in the minds of the park builders at Timberline, you were kind of one of the main shapers. Was that something you brought to them to kind of be like, hey, what do you think about this idea?
Actually, I kind of got in trouble when I did it the first time, because I mean, I started shaping, and like sometimes you just find this inspiration. It's like, oh, it's looking cool, and there's this one section between spray paint and paintbrush, and it's this kind of big, wide open section. And I started building like just some flowy quarter pipe walls. I was trying to experiment with a Zog, with trying to cut curved shapes, and I ended up just keeping connecting it all the way around the whole little bowl area. And then I started building little volcanoes in the middle and cutting it. But I was able to make it all so it was maintainable with a snowcat. That's so important for it to be a viable shape. You can build something once, but is it good to maintain for the next month without having major rebuild? Anyway, so I ended up formulating this way, but about halfway through, my bosses were kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? They were really good to me. They let me have free reign for the most part. And sometimes I go a little too far. I can't help myself. You get caught in a shape and you just can't stop, And I kept saying, oh, just 2 more days. I promise it's going to be done. It's going to be, I can see it, and they trusted me. And I did get it done. And it was what I hoped it would be. And it was really fun. But I was just, in my mind, I was just really trying to, I was trying to be the bridge. I was trying to find the middle ground between the highest level pros and also seeing the times changing of the terrain park world and the budgets and the money being spent and people asking a lot more questions about the dollars spent. And so I was really trying to recalculate something that all of the users could use, but also was fun for the pros that we have at Timberline. And there's a big population of them, without pissing everybody off for taking away all the big jumps. So yeah, I mean, it just kind of naturally happened by, again, being connected with the community, listening, but also knowing what the management wanted and just trying to, find that middle ground. And also, I can't help myself when it comes to shapes. It just, yeah, once it starts, I can't stop it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, that's
it's a
sick
bit
to
of an
hear
issue.
because I feel a lot, almost, if not everybody is very stoked when the flow park um gets built in the spring, because it's just like it's so cool. Like it's what you want to do as a snowboarder. You want to flow. You want to have a flow state. You want to get into, and you want to float in the air, and you want it to be, not crazy but mellow. Like it's awesome what the crazy people do, and they go off the big jumps, and spray paint and stuff like that. But a lot of the time is like those guys are even like, oh man, I just want to take a flow park run. It's just like
Yeah.
it just want to get back into the groove and chill.
I mean, for me, it's like the absolute, like, perfection of, like the part that I really grew to love the most about shaping and snowboarding, the combination of the two, is like when you build something, you're creating a canvas for another person to express their art on, you know? And as you learn your community, you can kind of like anticipate what they would like or what they would ride or the style of their riding. And to create a shape and then watch somebody else express their art on your art, it's just this, man, it's just this magic thing of a builder and a rider together, especially if you know the riders and you're like, oh, I bet, you know, whoever's going to hit this gap to that gap. And, and then the next day you didn't even say anything, but you see that rider make that gap and make that connection. That's like, I don't know. It's a real magic for me.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So dude, let's we've been talking about Hood a lot for a little bit, but we didn't really let's kind of take it back. What so you said, you grew up in Maine, Sunday River, um, doing, kind of getting in the cab with your dad and stuff like that. What was the driving force, and when did you actually move out west, and where did you go?
Well, basically, my first trip was to New Zealand. I had never traveled. I grew up in Maine, super small town vibes. I didn't graduate high school. Just snowboarding basically saved my life in that sense. And I was just partying all the time, and I really love snowboarding. And I was like, man, if it's gonna be serious, it's gotta be a year-round thing. It can't just be 6 months of snowboarding and 6 months of painting houses and partying. It's never going to lead anywhere. So I ended up applying to a bunch of resorts in New Zealand and never flown on a plane, nothing, just got a job at a ski resort and sent it. And after that trip to New Zealand, it was like, I just felt like anything was possible. It's like I can just go to the other side of the planet and drive a snowcat, do whatever I want to do. What can't you do at that point? And it just set me free. And I had an opportunity to go to Hood the next summer um, and just haul salt, be a salt hauler. And I just wanted my foot in the door. I don't care. I just want to go to Hood, snowboard year round. I get to drive a snowcat just delivering uh, bags of salt, to all the salt boxes. And they were pretty happy with my salt hauling, and I was already a cat operator. So I was like, uh, they offered me a job the next summer. I was like, well, if, you liked how I hauled salt, imagine if you gave me a job I liked. And so anyway, they gave me a job shaping the next summer. So that's kind of how I moved out west. But I was already I had started a terrain park consulting company with my my brothers back here in Maine called Destoy Terrain Parks. And were contracting all over the East Coast. I had, 3 or 4 contracts in Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts. We were really focused on the mom and pop resorts. And, you know, I felt like everybody else, like there's the big consulting companies, SPT, Planet Snow at the time, with Pat Melendowski. They were going for all the corporate stuff, but there's so many little mom and pops on the East Coast, and they need good parks too, so I just focused on those. So I would spend most of the winters back in the East Coast. I had a fabrication shop. We'd weld rails, and distribute those around the East Coast. And then we'd do our snow shaping contracts. And when that stuff ran out, I'd go back to Hood and start building for the camps for the summer and public park. And Timberline was really good about letting me come and go with my contracts. And so I just kind of ended up eventually spending more and more time at Hood. And the contracts on the East Coast, I built so many rails. They're still in use today. Maybe I built them too good because they didn't have to rebuy them, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I just kind of slowly transitioned to more and more at Hood. And started taking on more responsibility with Windell's, and eventually ended up merging my company's terrain park programs from around the country into Windell's program as kind of like a builder training / integration from all the parks around the country, trying to build a bigger network of riders and shapers. So,
Nice.
yeah.
And when you started to work with Wendell's, what year was that?
My goodness, what year is it currently?
Are we in 24? Yeah, we're 24.
I think I'm not sure. I
Stage
guess it was.
24.
Yeah, I think my first summer at Hood was as a builder was 2007.
Okay.
So, I always kind of, filled in. Mount Hood summer ski was my jam for a bunch of years, with my good friend Ricky Millett. I don't know if you know Rick Millett, but anyway, probably full time we started doing Windell's, I would say probably 2012 or 13.
Okay. Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome to hear. I was probably right behind you into my introduction of like working up at Hood, in the ski school with Steve Muse. Don't know if you know Steve Muse or have
Of course.
ever encountered. Okay, good, good.
Yeah.
Literally my idol.
Yeah.
The guy is just like, I don't know.
No, he's
I just
a
love his
solid
vibe.
human. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's a great guy, and everyone at ski school was so nice, and that translated into every other department. Honestly, wherever you go at Timberline, not just Timberline too, just like when you're at Hood, like everyone's on the same vibe, and that's what's so cool about it is like you can go from place to place, you can go from resort to resort, whatever you want to do. I've had instructor friends like Samantha Grist. I'm sure you know her. The first time I ever met her was at the Rathskeller when she was bartending. And then she told me she was an instructor too. And she was currently working at Meadows, but she had worked at Timberline. She worked at ski. She's done all this stuff. And that's what's cool about Hood is like you can go anywhere and, get what you need to do and everything like that. And then also come back. And it's really cool to see. And like you were talking about, so you were shaping for Wendell's, and let's lead into like my first introduction into like your social media was those live cams early in the morning, and you're up at Timberline, you're up on Palmer, it doesn't matter where you are, you're over at Norm's shaping, but I always just was always so stoked because I knew that Caleb was going to be on Instagram Live. Usually when I would be waking up, what was your, you've kind of you've taken a little bit step back from social media lately, but during that time, what was your inspiration to like kind of do those live cams in the morning and stuff? Were you just trying to get like the crowd hyped to come up?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always a mystery, especially at Hood. It's like most of the time, if it's cloudy at the house, it's not necessarily you're going to be above the clouds on the mountain, and it's hard to tell. You wake up and it's all like gray out your window. You're like, oh man, and then you like turn on. It's like, oh no, it's above the clouds. It's beautiful. It's going to be a sick day. It's like it's a perfect mentality change, for people to get amped up to come up in the morning. And who doesn't want to share a nice Mount Hood sunrise?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
snowcast
from
is
the
a bonus
east.
beyond that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a spiritual experience for sure. Yeah, dude,
Yeah, it doesn't
so
do it justice in a live. If you haven't seen it, you should
no.
go
No,
see
it
it.
doesn't. And then especially if you're up, like we all know, Hood is the most, if not the most, one of the most traveled summit, for climbers in the entire United States, in the entire world, because the access is just so convenient for
Yeah.
people. You start off at, 6,000 feet, you start climbing, you only got 5,000 feet to go. And it's really, I mean, it can be gnarly in moments, but for the most part, it's a pretty chill climb to get up to the summit of Hood. And as far as like the vibe goes, it's just like it's really cool on those clear mornings. It's just like, I don't know, it's a place that I really can't describe to a lot of people. All I tell people is if they've never been, that they need to go,
Yeah.
um, and just go
For sure.
experience that mountain for yourself, because it's definitely special.
Yeah. I feel blessed to have been able to spend the, decade there that I did. And yeah,
Definitely,
amazing,
dude.
amazing place and community of riders and supportive
Yep.
people. So blessed
Just
for
so
that
many good
time.
homies coming out of there. Yeah, and you know, proof is in the pudding, dude. Like you and I are talking.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
we
Yeah.
don't know each other that well, but we know we know each other. Like we know each other
Yeah.
through Hood. We know each other through the art community in Hood. Back when you were down there, you were doing a lot of wood shaping and woodworking and stuff like that. Let's kind of talk about that a little bit, because during that time, you were still shaping parks, whether it be at Meadows or Timberline.
Hmm.
But then you also, um, I don't know the whole story behind this, but you kind of got hired to start a snowboard camp in Japan through High Cascade. And I don't know the whole story behind that, but I
Hmm.
remember seeing a lot of your posts, and like you were implementing your woodworking into the lodge and things like that. Let's kind of talk about like how that came to be and what that experience was like.
For sure. Um, yeah, I mean, basically, I started getting contracts through High Cascades to go to Japan and build, just a version, kind of the same thing that I was doing here in the States with the Windells brand. I had Windells in your park at uh, places, in Minnesota, Buck Hill, and some other parks around the country, and so that they had already they had a pre-existing program in Japan with High Cascades, and so I got contracted to go over and start building parks for them at Okashiga-Kogen, in the Shiga-Kogen region, which is Nagano, around where they had the Winter Olympics. Um, it was amazing. I mean, yeah, dreams. Like, yeah, Japan's my paradise in that sense of amazing
Okay.
snow and woodworking, and yeah. So I loved it there and tried to spend as much time as I could. And as I was kind of transitioning out of Timberline, um, trying to figure out what was next for me, I had an opportunity to go and actually buy a ski resort with some friends. It was called Minnehaha Kogen, and the Shugadira Plateau region of Japan. And so, yeah, I mean, why don't you're gonna try it, right? I mean, if you're definitely gonna you get a chance to buy a resort, you're gonna go. So, the whole concept for me, I think at that point, and still today, I feel like the ski resorts are kind of losing their magic. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of just you know corporatized skiing vibes. There's no homie at the bottom of the lift giving you a high five, telling you where the pow stash is. Just like that magic is kind of disappearing a little bit, and I really wanted to like try to recreate that. Was really the vision for the resort in Japan. And yeah, so I mean, we tried to get some, um, you know, tried to really keep it in a place where it was like heart investors, people who really cared about the project. It didn't weren't really trying to go to banks and take a bunch of money. Just anyway, it was amazing. We ran it for a season, and we had some typhoons and right
Yeah.
before COVID, and it didn't get to its full fruition, unfortunately. But it was an amazing experience. I mean, I feel like, I mean, honestly, I haven't snowboarded since I left Japan that last time. It's been a couple years, I guess, but yeah, and it was kind of like the last hurrah for me in the ski industry. It's like I didn't really fit. There's no programs that I'm interested in to build for really in the country at the moment, and I don't really feel the drive to create something again from scratch. So the resort in Japan was kind of like that last, like, I'm just going to run my own because I feel like I don't match the values that I find in snowboarding. I can't find in a ski resort at the moment. And so let's just try to do it ourselves. And,
Yeah.
learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure, dude. What what kind of came to be of that ski resort? Did someone else come in
Yeah.
and swoop it up, or
Yeah. A Japanese company out of
okay?
Tokyo. I mean, I mean, it's a bummer that we don't still have it, but the reality is we did help save a small little resort in Japan. We got a couple of years with some amazing friends in Japan. We did a lot of restoration to that resort. It
Yeah.
was in shambles. We end up restoring lifts and bringing one of the base lodges back, and I got to work with amazing Japanese woods, and we got, the local community was amazing to us, and I met some amazing people. So, I wish we could have kept it going, but it's hard to, um, it's hard to get people to invest, U.S. investors, into a dream of a resort in
Yeah.
Japan. You know what I mean? And in that moment, it was a weird moment. It was, uh, yeah, it was tough situation. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
it was worth it, and they're still operating Minnehaha Kogen,
yep.
and
And for those who
they're
don't
doing good
know,
things with it.
is that main island?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay. Up by,
Um,
is it outside Niseko area
no,
or
it's actually right outside a small city from the Nagano region called Suzaka.
Suzaka? Okay.
And Suzaka. So it wouldn't. It's not in the Hakuba. Basically Nagano's like a big valley. And you got the
Mhm.
Hakuba region on one side and the Shugadira Plateau on the other side, and we were on the Shugadira Plateau side. Um, and it was amazing. I mean, the mayor of Suzaka became a really good friend, and he still supports me to this day. And the whole community of Nirakai, the people that we bought the the ski resort from are, I mean, still close friends of mine. And yeah, I mean, it's just a great experience all around. They really
Yeah.
welcomed us in. If we could have had the funding to keep going, yeah, it's a great. I don't know how much you know about the Japanese ski culture, but a lot of it's based around farming, and they put up a lot of ski resorts, just ski lifts in these farm fields. They grow lettuce or whatever, just so that basically the company that sells the lifts would put in the lift just to service it. So there's all these little ski resorts all over Japan that are basically failing because they're just little places and there's a million of them. So they're pretty available if anyone's looking to buy a ski resort in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that. Not to, be one of those people, but I follow a lot of YouTubers, especially Casey Willax. And Casey
Hmm.
Willax is, he's really into Japan. Like he's got to get to Japan as much as he can. And he's kind of, he's done a lot of like showcasing like the different regions and the places that he goes and stuff and the culture. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like, you hear about it, but then, you see it on YouTube sometimes through these YouTube influencers. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, like, it's just amazing. It's just like, it's basically, for me personally, like the two bucket list items I have are Japao and Baldface. And those are literally the only two places that I could check off my
Pretty
list
good
because I
goals.
feel like, yeah, pretty big goals. Like you're not going to get to Baldface anytime soon, um,
Maybe.
unless you go
They're nice
Valhalla.
guys.
Valhalla is open, but it's tough to get into Baldface right now. Like it's like
Yeah.
people are on the wait list, dude. Like you need to know somebody now. So
Well, good for them. That's
yeah, for
awesome, though.
sure,
I'm
dude.
glad they're crushing
But
it.
yeah,
That's the type of thing that should be more of. Look how profitable it is. He's crushing. He can't even get a date.
mm-hmm,
That that's the soul of snowboarding right there. That's why it's
yeah,
attractive. That's the magic
yeah,
that I'm talking about that's lost. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah,
what the attraction is. It's just
yeah,
lost in the woods, snowboarding with your friends.
mm-hmm,
No neon signs, no Gap stores, no Starbucks in the base lodge. Powder and friends in nature.
yep.
That's it. That's
And
all you
that's
need.
why, I mean,
You know.
God, yeah, it's so true, dude. And that's why I feel like the backcountry is very appealing currently for me. Um, Gosh, man, I just want to get out on my split board sometimes and just get away from it all because
Mhm.
it creeps in all the time to all these places that like used to be places that a lot of people didn't go, but now just like and especially with COVID, like you said, like COVID has just magnified that sport. And I love it. I love that people want to, go out and snowboard. I want all these people to do this stuff because if we didn't have these people that were getting into it, the it would continually start to decline, I feel like. And it was on that path during that time, especially during that time when like you and I were both up at Timberline and stuff. It was like it wasn't like it is now. It's starting.
Yeah.
It has continued to grow through this time, and that's what's cool to see. We may get annoyed and stuff, but I tell people all the time, I'm just like, if you don't want to go be among the crowds, then figure it out, dude. Like go midweek, like
Yeah.
go to
I
a
mean,
new
that's the
place,
benefit
like
of
go
being
to a smaller resort. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Benefits of being a snowcat driver is getting fresh tracks. As soon as you park your cat, you go rip a few by yourself on the fresh cords, or hopefully a good snowcat buddy like Jacob.
yeah,
And you know, I mean, you're done before anyone's even out of bed. You know what I mean?
no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And so, man, and you're talking about that, like, going back to Hood. I wanted to talk to you about. Do you were you ever friends with Chris Moore?
I don't. I can't. I don't. I'm not sure. I
Okay,
don't recognize
Chris
the name.
Moore.
Sorry,
He
Chris
started
Moore, if I
shaping
should.
Chris Moore started shaping habitual snowboards. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I know of
so that's
them. Yeah.
Chris. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yep. Had the bank slalom down ski bowl one year.
Yeah. 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 I know who you're
That
talking
never
about.
came to
Of
be
course.
again. Um, but those relationships are like you talking about friends of yours, like that's somebody that I feel is like a really awesome, ambassador for our sport, but you may never heard of him and stuff like that. But
Exactly. But I instantly knew
yeah,
of his brand. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, dude.
Yeah.
And literally I was talking with a homie of mine who knows Chris, but his name's Nate Jepson, and he used to shape at Meadows. He was on park crew at Meadows for a long time. He was on park crew at Sugar Bowl down in Tahoe. But he's been living up in Idaho for a while, and then he just actually went back down to Tamarack Resort to start heading up the park crew down there and start
Hmm.
doing some awesome shapes. And so him and I have been talking. He wants to get on the podcast and stuff, and talk with me.
Nice.
But I told him, I was like, yeah, dude, like I'm talking to Caleb Hamilton, and he's like, oh my god, dude, that guy's my boy. Like I love that guy. Like
Oh,
he's an
that's nice of him to
inspiration
say.
to me all the time.
Yeah.
So just like that cool community that we have is really awesome to see. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's chill with each other.
And I want that, I want that for the next. It saved my life. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I'm not to put down anything else. It gave me a great life, I should say. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That I could see beyond working a 9 to 5 and being a, you know, worker drone, and
Yeah.
snowboarding gave me the freedom to be whoever I wanted to be anywhere as I wanted to be and I want that for other people. It doesn't have to be snowboarding. It's whatever your, thing is. But yeah, I hope it continues around Mount Hood for that same vibe and that same, growth of people. It's really an amazing place for that.
Yeah, and I would agree as well, dude. Like, um, during when I was, gosh, man, when I found, I grew up and I snowboarded. I snowboarded a lot with my parents and stuff like that. Started out skiing, and then went back into snowboarding. But during like my high school years and my college years, like I kind of put it on the back burner, you know what I mean? And just kind of was like, I'm gonna do the college thing and party and all this stupid stuff. And then as soon as I moved to Portland, um, went through some stuff, kind of had a bad breakup at the time and stuff like that. But um, I was reconnected through actually one of my mom's best friends that she worked with in the Forest Service down in Southern Oregon, and he was a ski patroller up at Timberline. And he was like, "Hey, dude, we're looking for young, like younger people to kind of like bring in a fresh vibe to ski patrols. So you should try and apply." And so I did, and they brought me in, and it was awesome. I really appreciate ski patrol because it kind of taught me like what the rules were because I didn't know. I had no idea. I'd been gone for so long and stuff like that. And
Right.
so like they kind of showed me like, hey, this is what we do at Timberline. Like this is what's right. Like this is a no. Like don't do this ever. Like this is kind of how it is. So I'm like, okay, those are the rules. Okay, cool. And I was like one of the very few snowboard ski patrollers at that time. And so I did that for a few years, and it was awesome. Like if anybody's never been to Timberline, like we got Saint Bernard mascots. We got two dogs up there. Bruno is
Yeah.
like my favorite. I remember I was at the front doors of the YE Stay Lodge the first day Bruno showed up. He was just a little puppy, and it was his first day like on the actual job, and so that was really cool to me to like be a part of that and be like a part of that community, and like then transitioning into like meeting everybody when I started working at ski school and stuff like that, and meeting Steve Muse and meeting all these awesome homies and all these rippers and all these legends, dude. Like, and they would introduce you to other legends like Ian Smith and
Right.
all these awesome riders, like, and gosh, and also shout out to Herman Neal, dude. Like
Yeah, for real.
like homie's gone now,
The realist.
and he was just such a kind
Dude,
individual. He always was super awesome to everybody.
he had the
Um,
fucking, yeah, the fuck it gene, you know? He could just do,
yeah,
yeah, he just had the magic on the snowboard. Could
ugh,
literally just do anything at any moment. He was like, as a builder, he's like the rider that you dream, because you build like the weirdest, craziest shit, and all of a sudden, he would get all of it. You're like,
yeah,
amazing. He was my favorite.
yeah,
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 yeah, dude. And it's just like you know, and and then I was like, I was talking to Casey one time, Casey Willax, and I was like, yo, dude, like, did you know Herman? He was like, dude, I moved out, from Connecticut with Herman to Hood. Like, that was one of my day
wow,
one homies. And he's like, I can't even talk about it, bro. Like, it's
yeah,
just such a tragedy. But, that's a community that, we all kind of had, down there and stuff. Like, even though you didn't know somebody, like, you would go up to somebody and you'd be like, hey, dude, what's up? My name's so and so. Like, oh, what's up, dude? Like, I know that homie. I know who. Like, let's go
yeah.
fucking shred the next day, and stuff like that. And that's why Hood is so fucking special, dude. It's just,
It is. Yeah. And for the
yeah,
generations before us also, I mean,
yeah,
those guys like Kurt Heine and Tim Windell and those guys that, you know, I mean, those guys literally would hand dig their half pipes. Hand it. Think about it for a second. It would take me like 40 hours to dig a snowcat with a snowcat to make what they did with a shovel and some homies and some inspiration. You know what I mean? And that brought everybody from the whole world at that time to ride Hood, and it's
yeah,
those guys that like started that whole momentum and that whole vibe and the whole energy, and it's still continuing to this day. It's
yeah.
yeah, that's like that is the soul of snowboarding right there. That's amazing.
It's
Just some
You're so right,
homies
man.
with some shovels. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, like Brain Bowl that just went down at Baker, like that's fucking sick. It's all just shoveling, dude.
Yeah,
Each big time rider can like go to a zone and like make their own shape, and like some like people get freaking stoked on it, dude. It's just like this weird ass shape. They're like, oh, dude, what can I do with this? And
exactly. That's the
yeah,
fun
and
right
like you
there.
were talking about, like how Hood is just like a community, like, and it's grown. It's like, it's kind of crazy to see how much it's grown, especially like during Solstice Party and how many
Hmm.
people are up at Illumination Rock and stuff like that. But still, you love to see it, man. Like, I'd love to see everybody get out there and have a good time and have fun. But yeah, dude, let's talk about so we're kind of going through it, and we left off where you were in Japan, you were doing your thing, and COVID happened and stuff like that. When COVID happened, I kind of started to peek back into your Instagram, and I would catch you, like, you were out on like the Arctic ice in snowcats, like delivering supplies and stuff. Like, where were you, and like how did that come to be? Like, was that just like an, I don't know, like, it seems like you could make a pretty lucrative, you know time up there doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I've met people working up in the oil fields and stuff on the North Slope. So
yeah. So, after I, had to leave Japan, um, I needed something to do, and so I hit up the snowcat manufacturer. I got a pretty good relationship with them, and they said, "Well, what's going on? What do you got? What's happening?" And they said they had this program happening up in Alaska. Maybe I could lend a hand and try to get some stuff going for them. And um, yeah, so basically we were making deliveries from where the ice road in Prudhoe Bay, where the ice road ends, um, out to the most northern points of Alaska, up to Barrow, out to a few other random small villages on the coast. It was took it was a 237 miles one way, so it took about a week to do a round trip through the tundra. Um, It Yeah, it was um, a great experience. I definitely, wild. You know what I mean? Living in a snowcat
Yeah.
out on the tundra for a month at a time. Um, for sure, money to be made. It's just um, it's just not not my jam. I guess you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really um, yeah. Like I'm down to do some cowboy shit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've driven snowcats on volcanoes and crazy places all over the world, but um, you know, yeah. Anyway, there's some balances that need to be met. I feel like they're still working it out. I'm not the guy to
Yeah.
working it out for them. I think.
Yeah, I feel that, dude. I recently just sat down with a local ski shop owner, Ren, Layden up here in North Idaho, and he did. I think he said he did 3 seasons up in Prudhoe Bay.
Hmm.
And he worked the north slope of the oil fields and stuff with his dad and his brother do it up there and stuff like that a lot. And he was just like, dude, just like it. I mean, it was a great experience, but it was like I was done with it after a while. Like it's just a
Yeah,
lot. It's
I
a
mean it's
lot to
fine.
do.
Yeah, yeah. I've never been good with the money motivation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's for me. It's about like I gotta be interested in it, and
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. I don't know. It was an adventure. I definitely enjoy. I'm so happy. I mean, I got to see some crazy aurora nights just like laying in the snowcat. I was sleeping in the back. It was like an all glass cabin on the back, and
Yeah.
you just sleeping on a mattress in the back there with a little drip diesel heater and but the big moonroof on the ceiling of the so you just lay there and watch the aurora all night. But there were days where um it doesn't get dark. So you would be just driving in the flat white for days, but it never
Yeah.
was night. Like the sun would come up or go down to the horizon and then just transition across the horizon and be like a 6 hour sunset and then just come back up. It was a sunset and a sunrise combined, and it just was the weirdest thing, like you can't see anything. Like the wind's blowing. It's a sunny day, but it's all flat tundra, so you can't. Everything's white. A little bit of wind and -40, just wild times.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We were
dude.
hauling
It's
like
it's crazy. I
yeah, like
watch.
yeah. I was saying
Oh yeah.
we were hauling
What
like
were you
sixty
hauling?
thousand pound loads. It's like crazy on skis and yeah, wild stuff.
Yeah, dude. I watch a YouTuber, Truckhouse Life, and his name's Timmy. He's out of Girdwood, Alaska. So
Hmm.
down up by Alyeska, at the base of Alyeska, near Anchorage. But he's really into like going up to that area and going up to Prudhoe Bay and taking the Dawson Highway and all this stuff. And just like, dude, the country out there is just intense, dude. It's just nothing like you will ever
Yeah,
experience in your
yeah,
life. Um, that's gnarly, man. That's
yeah.
crazy. And so you did that for a little bit, and then after that, was I remember seeing you were down in Texas for a little bit, and then now you're back in Maine, kind of in
Hmm.
your home area. Let's talk about like your time in Texas and what's going on currently with you in Maine.
Yeah. I mean, the time in Texas was an experiment and a social experiment of whether or not I can work a regular job in a corporation. I took a job doing um, basically designing and computer design and building for a corporation down there. And yeah, I don't match the office life super well, so that didn't last long. But and Texas is Texas, to each their own. But so now back in Maine, I've been uh, trying to really dig deep and figure out what's next. Um, for, for my next project in life. And um, really just boils down to I got to work for myself. And um, so I'm going to start working towards, uh, basically producing products from my art. I'm 3D scanning, you know, carving them out of wood or clay or metal, whatever, and then 3D scanning them. They're redeveloping them into a lamp or a, whatever product. And then going to try to sell them and do product development for other companies through 3D scanning and artful creation for them, as well as selling my own. I got some 3D printers. I've just bought a big 5x9 CNC machine, so I can cut aluminum and wood and build furniture. And basically I'm just gonna make whatever inspires me in the day, and hopefully people buy it.
Yeah, dude. I remember at that art showing um, down at the Mount Hood Collective, you had, all of your woodworkings and and everything, and I was like, oh man, it's like so sick. I come from an area in Southwest Oregon that's like very into that. We had a lot of really cool burl, sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
We had a gallery called It's a Burl down in my
Oh,
hometown.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. So they had a lot of redwood and oak and
Mm-hmm.
maple and madrone and all kinds of really cool woods. So yeah, that's really awesome to hear because I remember how talented you were, when we were both at Hood and everything, and you had all these shapes coming out, and your artwork was just like so awesome and stuff, and it was great to see you create. And so now I'm just so stoked that you're going for it, and
Yeah, man, it feels really good to have like I don't know, I've been calling it my return to normal. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Of myself, of I've been trying to, find my rhythm outside the ski industry. And um, it's hard, man. It's a struggle for anyone that's been in my place that's, given their life to the snowboarding culture. And then at some point you realize you want to, be outside of it when your whole identity is it, you know? So
yeah,
uh, there's a little bit of reinventing in yourself there. And thankfully I delusional with self-belief and able to make stuff. And I'm gonna, just transition my energies into, you know, creating things that I hope people like.
yeah. I can feel that, dude. I feel like I'm stoked, and you know, I'm I'm keeping my eye out for something that I want to buy because I want to support, and I also am
Thank you.
like always so stoked on all the shapes that you make and the ideas that you come up with. I see your stories on Instagram, and you got all like this cool shape with like this wizard dude with like a pipe or something like that, and you're gonna shape it into wood and stuff. And I'm just like, oh man, that'd be such a sick piece to have in the house. But yeah, dude, I
Thanks.
can I can relate too. It's like, you know, we have our time in snowboarding and we're like working at the mountain and we're, doing everything that we can to be a part of it. But I feel like, with technology and social media and all this stuff, like, you can still have like your time with the sport that gave you everything. Like you said, snowboarding saved your life. It saved mine as well. When I got to
Yeah.
Timberline, it saved my life, dude. I was going down a wrong path, and if I wouldn't have been working at the mountain, I probably would, who knows where I would be right now.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
why I, yeah, that's why I feel like snowboarding is just like, it's the greatest community that I've ever experienced because you make lifelong friends and you have this community that supports you no matter what. And even if you take a step back and you're not up at the mountain all the time, you can still do other stuff. And with you and your creativeness in woodworking, and I'm sure you'll be relating it to snowboarding at some point, and me with the podcast and like getting to highlight, people like yourself and like show people like, hey, this this community is more than just like going out and riding on the hill. Like this is everything to us. Like it
Yeah.
will always be a part of us and stuff. So
Yeah, and I felt like, like when you reached out and asked for me to do it, my first reaction was like, I haven't snowboarded in 2 years. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I appreciate the love, but is my opinion even relevant about snowboarding at this point? I pay attention, obviously, and I love it
Hmm.
still. But in the end, I felt like, it's given me so much in my life, and it formed the person that I am. And if, my story and in it can reach anybody and make them appreciate snowboarding and save them in the same way that it saved me, I guess it's worth the conversation, I mean, I
I
still
think it
love it,
is. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I feel that too, dude. It's like, and that was like that's my goal for these conversations. It's like, listen, dude, you may have never heard of Caleb, but guess what? You rode that little knob that he built. You rode that booter that he built. Like this dude was here. Like, and even if you haven't heard of him, it's like the bomb hole, dude. Like the bomb hole will highlight the big timers, of course, like the people that we idolize in this industry and all of our like homies and stuff like that that we look up to. But there can be another lane for the people that are in the groundwork and like people you may have never heard of, but you know, as soon as you hear about them, you're like, oh, dude, I was there at that time and I was doing that. Like maybe I did meet that homie. And it's just cool to like learn the stories of these people that are in our industry and in this sport and in this art form that we all love and snowboarding that blossoms other things as far as like whether it be your art form and your artwork or the podcast or whatever, like let's
Yeah.
just like spread the stoke. That's all I want to do. And I think that, you know, people people may have never known that there was a high cascade in Japan for a moment, you know,
Right.
and I think that people should know that. And I think that it should
Yeah.
be supported again. I think that
Yeah.
it would be something awesome. And I think what's going on right now with like how people are able to get out there and stuff, like there's no reason why something like that couldn't happen again and stuff like that. But yeah, dude.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree totally. I think it just
for
takes
sure,
the
dude.
right people in the right places, I mean, nobody went to Tim Wendell and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, would you start a summer camp that will revolutionize snowboarding and make it better for everybody?" No, like he thought it was a good idea and he did it. You know what I mean? And he worked
Yeah.
hard to create
Yeah.
that community and that vibe for everybody. So it can happen again. It happened once, but it's not from us asking. It's going to be some inspired, next generation, and I hope that they do it. It will be in their own way, I'm sure, but um, you know, places like Hood
Yeah.
will always serve,
Yeah,
just
for sure, dude.
in a different way.
All right, man. Let's get into a little bit of let's get into a little bit of rapid fire. You down?
Sure thing. Yeah, sure.
Nice, dude. Okay. Um, this is just quick questions. You rocking pants or bibs?
Pants for sure.
Goggles or glasses?
Both at the same time.
All right. Pow
I'm
or
blind. I gotta have
slush?
something. Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Pow or slush?
Oh,
We come from hood.
yeah,
It's
I know.
tough.
Well, slush when I was 20, pow when I was 40. How about that?
There we go. Yeah, I feel that, dude. You know, coming up on 37, so I would agree.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, dude. So if you could pick your three favorite snowboarders of all time, male or female, just people that resonate with you, doesn't need to be the most famous, just like people that you get stoked off of. Who are they?
Uh, Rick Millett, Eric Breton, and
Okay.
probably Jacob Rees. Probably none of anybody. Jacob's a snowcat operator from Hood. We just would shape together and then ride together, and it was magic. Eric Breton was a local rider when I was a kid, and still is. He's just an inspirational guy. Amazing, pure talent in snowboarding, but also really great for the community. He was kind of our elder and always helped guide us and be really supportive. And then Rick Millett, if you don't know him, you should probably know him, but he's a snowboarder from Maine. He's a coach. He coached Mount Hood Summer Ski for years. Just the loudest, happiest dude on the planet with the best energy. He coaches, he was at Sun Valley. I think he might be at a place in Wyoming now. Anyway, I'm not positive, but yeah, those three.
Cool. Okay, so you're at the top of whatever it may be. It may be a sick park line, or it's just like endless pow fields, and you're rocking music. What's your go-to song to drop in? Or you can be listening to nature. Some people go no headphones.
I mean, nature's pretty good, but probably Lyrics Born, Don't Change.
Okay. Hell yeah. I like that. I like that, dude. Okay, so final rapid fire question. One person to go backcountry riding with. Who's the person and where would you go? Ultimate POW conditions.
Mm-hmm. It would probably be with Kurt Heine. And anywhere as he wanted to take me in the Northwest. He like filmed all the iconic snowboarding shit back in the day. He would know where all the, he knows.
Okay.
But probably Baldface would be pretty high.
Love to hear it, man. All right. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that's up there, dude. Would love to be there. One day we'll get there, dude.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, man. Sweet. All right. Well, I just want to say, dude, thank you again, Caleb. I really appreciate, us connecting back with each other, and you so generously donating your time to come onto the podcast and, let people know about your story and your journey through snowboarding, what you're doing now. And so if there's anything else you would like to say, we'll just go with that and then we'll close it out, dude. Yeah,
thanks for having me, and thanks for supporting snowboarding with your podcast and doing what you're doing. And yeah, it's important. Thanks for the time.